hashtag according to Buist Hardison.
Okay.
Hashtag personal opinion. Okay. Let's just start.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, just noticing that again upon a further look into the work, that these are the gentlemen from the Harlem Renaissance, which are like, what was your inspiration for putting them in there, but making you have to look deeper into the
Well, because I said the whole theory, the whole series has to do with the Great Mother, which is back there, but it's basically Southern black women, and I said Southern black women more so than African American women, and I always tell people this because I think when we do the African part, we negate the 400 years we've been here, and so I'm not trying to negate the African part, but there's 400 years that people had to learn how to deal with it. We did not get to go back and talk to your grandmother about how to do something. I mean, that was just cut off. Right or wrong, it was cut off. So when you go back and start adding that to art, and I kind of call it kente cloth art. It really has nothing. You just grab something and you stick it on there and say that makes my art African.
Mm-hmm.
But there's
art.
But when you look at Jacob Lawrence and Aaron Douglas back from the Harlem Renaissance, and I really like the Harlem Renaissance. Is that they were doing the same thing, right? They were trying to reinterpret African American life and portray it to a larger culture that was denying that it existed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so which is why if you go to Fist and look at the
Aaron
Douglas mural,
yes.
So that's what inspired me. That's why you see a lot of silhouettes of it, the silhouettes of faces. That's from Aaron Douglas.
It's funny to say that because in anthology, one of the work that I made with Nashville Ballet, there was a direct reference to just like having silhouetted bodies in the space and like the emotion of those bodies in the space. And I was bringing up like for the lighting designer, pulling up Aaron Douglas, paintings like this is the inspiration for this mood is the fact that
because he charted that whole thing. If you go Aaron Douglas and Jacob Lawrence, they chronicle. I mean, what Jacob Lawrence was the migration. Have you seen this migration series? Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you seen this migration series? I mean, you should see his migration series. Talks about the country, but it's in silhouette too. I mean, very flat, but very emotional and strong, and the how dynamic the way they use line. And you can't go way back and say yes, that can remind you of Africa,
hieroglyphics and stuff like that.
But so they took that, but they put definitely an American spin to it. It wasn't going back and saying I'm just going to just copy African art and say I understand it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think you can. I think you have to grow up in a culture to understand that culture. A lot of cultures come here can do that. They can go like the Africans come here now. They can go straight back home and bring it back over here. No matter how much we try, we can't do that. Right. I'm not going to go back and find my grandma or great grandma or great whatever. I'm not going to find it. So that was part of what I was trying to do here, so I did pull from the Harlem Renaissance. There's also some Japanese stuff. I mean, Chinese art, because I like that too. Mm-hmm. But because I like the sensibilities, because sometimes if you look at Chinese culture, some Asian cultures, how we have play sisters and play mamas, they kind of have that same thing when you talk to them. They do have that same kind of family connection, the extended family. They call everybody aunts.
Yeah, everyone's an auntie.
Everybody's an auntie, and we have the same thing. And again, the conversation said, "Wait a minute, that's the same thing that we have." And it's like they don't know that we have it. We don't know that they have it. Just assume that culture has nothing to do. So it doesn't matter the culture, whether the two cultures are met. They still took kind of the same thing. The respect for elders, that whole thing is there. So I like looking at that. So sometimes if you would look at, you'll see some of that influence. But when I saw those boys, it was like, it just reminded me when I was growing up and church day, and because it was 6 of us, and Mama sit you down and you could not move, but you would dress just like that, and you dress, and I think we still dress, not as much, but we still dress until that was part of it. Like that coat you had on with the upper 21. It was that you can't wash. But So I wanted that in that, because they were like little men, but they were just very kind of casual arrogance about them. That's just, we're here.
Yeah.
They were, I mean, just,
And especially in that time,
Yeah.
you know, in that time too of segregation, and to have a space of like, I am a man, or I'm a child, and I can look
and they're a
good.
child.
Yeah, and they're a child.
They were grown up. They just had such an attitude. And we look at them, and I think of the Temptations and all of that, all of that same kind of class, a way of dressing, a way of holding yourself together. They just had it. And so I kind of, when I thought of her, I said, oh, I'm going to put them in front of that. But I wanted them to be transparent so they didn't dominate. Because I also think you have that male and female always goes together, which is, again is in that painting there. If you look at it, she has both those aspects, male and female, but basically female, because that's like becomes a triple goddess, and so that part here becomes a yin yang, which is male and female. Only in the vision, it